Hello everyone, and welcome to the Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. Tonight, my friends, marks an ending. Not to anything serious, of course, just the end of the 5th season of The Darkest Hour. And like all endings, new beginnings. The beginning of season 6 picks right back up next Friday night, right here. Before we get started with tonight's super spooky show, I want to thank you all for listening, for liking these videos, for subscribing, commenting. It's all amazing. It means so much, and just thank you. Also, I'm going to start releasing sleep videos here very soon. I'd love for you all to give me your feedback on those. Sleep is so very important. And so we want to make sure that we're making that experience the best we possibly can. Okay, I'm done with all of that, and I'm ready for the spooky season finale. So, let's get started, shall we? When I was 6 or 7, my stepdad took my stepsister and me to Liberia. My mom was left back in the US and sent us money to survive. My stepdad dumped us at his mother's house to live with his other family. I was alone in a foreign country, very scared. A man who claimed to be my uncle took me to his job. I was terrified and made sure to stay by his side. We were in a bustling crowd, and we would have to wiggle around. At one point, my quote-unquote uncle grabbed my wrist painfully hard. It hurt so bad I began to whimper. I look up to ask him to stop. I realized that the man grabbing me was not my uncle. I proceeded to lose my shit and started screaming. My sudden screams loosened his grip and let me slip away. Nobody tended to me or even helped me find my uncle. After a good while, I finally found him. He was pissed, blamed me for not paying attention. Asshole. I love walking in the woods, but some strange things have happened in the woods. Have you had anything weird happen to you? This is one of the strangest things that's happened to me. It was a beautiful day for a hike in the woods, so I grabbed my backpack and set out on the trail. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the leaves rustled gently in the breeze. As I walked deeper into the forest, I noticed that the sounds of nature had grown quieter. It was as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. That's when I saw her, a woman dressed in white, standing at the edge of a clearing. She looked like she was from another time, with a long, flowing dress and a ribbon tied around her waist. At first, I thought she might be lost or in trouble, so I approached her cautiously. But as I got closer, she vanished into thin air, leaving only the sound of rustling leaves behind. I was shaken, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to follow her. So I continued on the trail, my heart pounding in my chest. As I approached the clearing where I'd seen the woman, I heard the faint sound of music. It was a haunting melody, played on a violin. I stepped into the clearing and I saw her again, the woman in white, dancing to the music of an unseen player. She twirled and spun, her dress billowing in the breeze. But then, as suddenly as before, she vanished again, leaving me alone in the clearing. I left the woods that day feeling haunted by the memory of the ghostly woman in white. I never saw her again, but I'll never forget the feeling of being watched by something not quite of this world. So, backstory. When I was young, maybe around 14, I was obsessed with ghosts. I'd research about them, watch shows about them, just had all of this curiosity all over. Within a few months, I started hearing noises, having disturbing dreams. I'd constantly hear footsteps when I was alone, and things like falling off the walls or doors slamming. I'd constantly have sleep paralysis dreams, but never saw anything. Not yet. Finally, one day, I woke up around 3 a.m. The energy in the room, it was off. Like someone was around watching me. It's the middle of winter in Illinois. The moon was out and it was snowing outside, so the moonlight was shining through my window. I finally muster up the courage to look over my covers, and 3 feet away from me is this solid black figure. It was like 7 feet tall, kind of looked like a person with a draped blanket covering it. The texture was also very rough. It nearly gave me a heart attack, so I put my covers over my head and fell back asleep. I woke up in the morning and thought maybe I was dreaming. Later in the day, I start telling my sister about it while sitting in my room, and then all of the lights in my room shut off. So we all get up and leave and start screaming. Later that night, I go to bed, and then I wake up around the same time. Before I open my eyes, I can tell I'm not facing the wall. I slowly open my eyes, and that same figure is standing a foot away from me. I go back under the covers for a few minutes, and then double check to make sure I'm not dreaming. It's still there. I end up telling my mom, and she sages the house, and that was the end of that. Present day, I just moved into a new apartment, my first time living alone. I just can't stop thinking about this creepy-ass face in my mind. Just imagine, like a girl from The Grudge. My closet is giving me weird vibes. I'm just really afraid if I keep thinking about it, the same thing will end up happening. Except this time there's no one else living with me or here to help. I should probably go to sleep soon. I'm just too scared to turn off the lights. I think I might sleep with the window open, just to hear the outside noises. Any advice? Does thinking about this type of stuff invite it into your home? So this happened when my sister and I were kids, and we went hiking in the woods in our backyard in North Carolina. We only had a few neighbors around us, and our house was surrounded by woods. It was a Saturday afternoon during the summer, and my sister and I decided to go hiking alone, like we did quite frequently. We were both under the age of 8, but our parents let us go hiking alone. We loved exploring the forest and discovering new places. As we made our way through the woods, everything was fine at first. When we went to our favorite place where we usually hung out, something didn't feel quite right. I felt an uncomfortable feeling, like something was going to happen. I looked around at my surroundings and I didn't see anything or anyone. My sister and I continued walking through the woods until suddenly we heard leaves crunching behind us. So we turned around to see what it was. There was nothing there, so we thought it was just an animal. As we started hiking again, we heard the leaves crunching, and as we turned around, we saw someone run and hide behind a tree. We could see their shadow coming from behind the tree, and it looked like a person. It was definitely not an animal. We both looked at each other and felt paralyzed by fear. We started freaking out and thought this person was going to kidnap us. I grabbed my sister's hand and told her to run. We ran as fast as we could back home. Once we made it home, we ran inside and told our parents. Our parents became worried and told us next time we go hiking, don't go too far from the house anymore. I don't know who was following us, but it still freaks me out to this day. I don't know what they would have done to us if we hadn't run away. So, for some backstory, my parents aren't very superstitious people. They're religious, but they're the type of people to find a logical explanation, especially for the harder to explain occurrences. So this dream they both had, it must have been quite realistic for them to act this way. The star of this post is my little sister, Mika. I think she was about 5 or 6, but I don't know. All I know is that she was very young. The night my folks had this dream, we were supposed to go to my step-grandmother's house to help fix something on the house's roof. I hadn't directly asked them what happened in the dream, but when we woke up in the morning, they told Mika to stay away from anything high. And when she asked why, they told her that they both had a dream where she fell from a high place. They told me to watch her carefully that day. They both looked genuinely worried for her safety, so I did precisely that. The entire day, I ensured that she stayed away from the ladders and pretty much anything that she could fall from a high place. The day passed without any incident, and the dream was soon forgotten. The following week or two, again I can't exactly remember, that's when the fall happened. Now, I do want to reiterate that Mika was perfectly fine, which is mind-blowing. You'll see why in a second here. Before I continue, I need to describe the layout of where the accident happened. It took place in the basement, right beside the stairs. The stairs had this wooden pole that was supposed to be a railing, so there was a good amount of space underneath this so-called railing. The basement was unfinished then, which meant the floor was cement. Man, remembering this makes me wonder how the hell Mika walked away unscathed. To get to the basement, you walk down 4 steps to this small landing where the back door was located. Then they turned the opposite way and went down to the basement. Hopefully, that makes sense, like a split level. My parents and I were in the basement in the middle of an argument, which often happened in that house. Mika, being the curious kid that she was, tried to covertly position herself at the top of the stairs to see what the altercation was about. I have no idea what happened, but she somehow slipped from the top of the stairs and landed head first on the cement. We all surged towards her, worried as hell that she'd cracked her head open or worse. But after my parents inspected her for any wounds, Mika seemed perfectly fine, albeit a little rattled. My parents took her to the doctor to ensure that she was okay, and by some damn miracle, there wasn't any sign of a concussion or other severe injuries. Someone out there was watching out for her that day, and I'm so damn grateful that she's all right. Mika is now 18, living her best life. As for the shared dream, my parents never had a dream like that again. That was the only time that's ever happened. Thanks for reading. This is my first post, so hopefully the story was easy to follow. Also, I suck at ending stories, so stay awesome. Back in late 2006, I was pregnant with my twins. We lived just about 30 minutes away from the beach, and one weekend, we decided to take our daughter to the beach. She loved it, and it was a favorite family activity. Anyway, the 3 of us were out swimming in the water, just having a great time. We were stupid. We were just a little bit too far from the shore with a toddler. We shouldn't have been. We also were very caught up just having a great time together. I suddenly realized that we were the only ones in the water. I looked towards the shore, and everyone was yelling to get out of the water. Right then, a huge shadow swims between us and the shoreline. This was a very large, popular beach. There were no warning flags or anything, and so we kind of just forgot to respect nature. I've never made that mistake again. I went hiking with my dad. We started talking about spirits and demons and all that. When we started talking about it, we felt something watching us. Me and my dad looked behind us. I didn't tell him, but I saw a pair of eyes as we were going down. I swear, something was watching us. Then we heard a scream. We ran down a trail with stairs. We're thinking of going back tomorrow, just not at night. Ever since I created a post about my toxic ex and paranormal experience, my mood immensely improved. I feel 100 pounds lighter. It's only been a day since I created my first post, yet I feel so much better knowing that someone may have read what I've been through in the past. Still, there's a few things I failed to mention. My parents persuaded me, more like forced me, to move to a different town and study at a different university because they worried about me being with my toxic boyfriend at the time. My mother and I were looking for an apartment or a room for me to rent. We stayed in this town looking for a place to rent for 2 weeks. We'd almost given up hope walking around town when my mother suddenly saw an old lady hanging a sign in the front of a door. It said, "For rent." My mother immediately walked towards the old lady who turned out to be the owner of the place. She invited us to see the house. When I walked in there, something felt off. I immediately whispered into my mother's ear that it looked like a witch's house. That's the first thought that popped into my mind. I really didn't like the place. The old lady told us that a young couple stayed there for years, but they had to leave because the girl's father had passed away the day before. Their furniture was still there, and we did meet them because they were moving the very same day that my mother spoke to the owner. It all happened very fast for the couple, but for us as well. I moved in there after 2 or 3 days. The house was so awkwardly built, and I was so scared to live in there that I had the lights on the whole time when it was nighttime. It had a long staircase that led to a hallway. On one side, there was a door leading to the kitchen. On the other side, there was another door leading to the bedroom. In the middle of the hallway, there was a third door leading to the bathroom. I hesitate bringing up the small attic above the bathroom because I never even dared to look inside. It was located above the bathroom ceiling, like a small storage room, but it was big enough for someone to climb in. Of course, I never did it. The first night, I left my bedroom door open. Big mistake. I dreamed that I was walking across the hallway and it was dark. All 3 doors opened. I passed the bathroom door, and I saw 2 bright yellow eyes staring at me. I immediately ran into the bedroom. I threw myself on the bed, and the dark figure wrapped one hand around my neck and started choking me. I forced myself awake, but as I was waking up, I started coughing. My neck felt hurt like I was choking in real life. In fact, I'm not even sure if I was dreaming this whole time because the figure dissolved, but the eyes stayed for a while. I immediately shut the door, locked it, switched the lights on, threw a blanket over my head. I started to pray until I fell asleep. I'm someone who knows when I'm dreaming and when I'm not. I'm always aware of the dreaming me whenever I'm having a good dream or a bad dream. I feel like I was not really dreaming. I lived there for almost 4 years. I was always afraid of nighttime. I locked the doors. I always kept the lights on. Things got better when I broke up with my toxic ex and I found a new boyfriend. I felt protected, no presence around when he was near. He stayed in my house almost every night and I was happy. What's also really strange is that a white cat that had one green eye and one blue eye would climb onto the tree near my window. It would get into my house whenever I left the window open. I didn't have any paranormal activity because of it, though. I don't know if it helped me or if it didn't, but as odd as I found this incident to be, I didn't feel threatened by the cat. My parents visited me. When they did, I told my father, and he was alarmed. He started looking for the cat. It never showed up again. I only saw the cat once on my house's rooftop and a few times near my house. My sister and one of my sister's friends did report paranormal activity when they stayed over at my house. They told me the door flew open one night, and the strange thing is that they had it locked. What's even stranger is I've dreamed of that particular door flying open. It's almost like I knew the house would do that, even when I wasn't there. When I was around 11, I got very into fairies, but more in a witchy way, I guess you could say. I realize that's kind of odd for a kid to be into things like this, but you gotta know I was very imaginative, somewhat of a lonely kid. I've always loved fairies. My mom got me a book on them. It included fairy language, a list of gifts to offer fairies should you wish to interact with them. Of course, I wanted to contact them. What little girl wouldn't? For about a month, I wandered out to the backwoods of my house by a river, because, according to the book, fairies like to hang out around water. I would leave little written notes in their supposed language, along with little gifts and offerings. I'd make them little leaf baskets, leave them candy or flowers, things like that. I even recited a chant. Yeah, I know. I think part of me knew it was silly, that I'd probably never get results, but damn if I wasn't determined. So I kept on. At one point, my gifts and notes started disappearing from the bench I left them on. I figured it was the wind or birds taking it, but a small part of me hoped it was something else. A month of this nonsense and I was getting very discouraged. I decided to leave a few more gifts for them. This time, I weighed them down with small rocks so they couldn't just blow away, and I'd know for sure. A day went by. My gifts were still there. Another day, same thing. Then, on the third day of checking, I found the gifts gone, but the rocks still there. Only the rocks were moved around. I don't remember how soon after that this happened, but eventually I got what I wanted. I wandered out into the woods, and I saw by the river 2 monarch butterflies. They were very large. I wanted to see them up close. However, one landed on a branch close to the path where I was standing, and I noticed this butterfly had limbs. Tiny, thin, pale limbs. Hands, feet. I stopped dead in my tracks, looked hard to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. It was broad daylight, and I could see very clearly. It wasn't a butterfly. It was a fairy. She had long, thin brown hair that went past her feet, a blue dress that looked like a small scrap of fabric. But what terrified me above all else was her face. Her eyes were giant, black, bug-like alien eyes, but she definitely had a face. And she definitely saw me. I didn't even try to look at the other one because I ran. I was so scared that I bolted home and locked the door. After freaking out and keeping an eye on my backyard, the backwoods, through the window, I went back. No surprise, they were gone. And I never saw them again, despite me trying over and over again. My gifts were never taken again. I felt sad and stupid because I felt like I ruined my chance to have fairy friends. But knowing what I know now, it was probably a blessing they left me alone. What do you guys think? Has anyone else seen a fairy, and did they look like this? I just need to find someone else who's seen what I've seen. I went to the library and looked at every book on butterflies I could find, Googled. I couldn't find a butterfly matching any description that looked like what I saw. It's something I'll never, ever forget. I remember her so clearly, I could draw her. Let me start off by saying my husband is Native, and this happened about 6 years before I met him. My ex-husband was stationed in San Diego, and I flew out there to visit him. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to stay with him on base for whatever reason. Don't ask me, because I don't even know myself. Also, I should add that I had just given birth about 3 months before this, and I had my son with me. Anyway, I found a hotel that wasn't far from base and close to food and whatnot. I went out to get some food, walked back to the hotel since it wasn't far. Unfortunately for me, my horrible sense of direction got me lost. I ended up near a wooded area, but there was a highway also nearby. It was getting close to sunset. I started seeing sets of shining eyes. I thought that they were just coyotes. I'm not afraid of much. After about 20 minutes, one set of shining eyes got closer, and I saw that it was a coyote. I watched Steve Irwin as a teenager and remembered that if you make yourself appear bigger and louder than you actually are, they'll usually just run off. So I started clapping my hands and shouting. This one, however, it didn't. It stood up and started walking like a person. I've never run away from something so fast. It never followed me, and I wasn't going to stick around to find out what it was. It wasn't until I met my current husband that I found out what it was, and the look on his face when I told him this story, he went pale. He never said anything, he just kinda nodded like he understood. Maybe it knew that I was still semi-healing from having recently given birth, or it saw my son in the stroller that I was pushing, just wanted to scare me. Either way, I don't know. I just know it succeeded in scaring me. This isn't really a question. It's more or less me telling the story of how I saw a skinwalker and didn't even know what it was at the time. Well, friends, we've reached the end of tonight's finale, but don't miss a brand new episode, a brand new season, right here, next Friday night and every Friday night. And don't miss my other weekly uploads, every Sunday and Wednesday. Don't forget to like this video, turn on notifications, and of course, talk to me in the comments. I want to thank those who shared their stories, and a big thanks again to all of you for listening. Huge shout out to all of my patrons for their unwavering support. I appreciate you all so very much. Tracy S, Tamara K, Monica L, ZoeWatt, Chelle B, Donald C, Marion T, Rat Girl, Alisha S, Erin G, Nikki H, Mr. Revenant, Naz K, Brendon G, Paul T, Nicholas C, Lissane, Arlene F, and Adrienne. Thanks everyone, and stay spooky.